There is a specific group of people who married before 25, and almost everyone around them had an opinion. Too young, too fast, haven't lived enough, don't know who they are yet. Research shows that very young marriages have historically faced higher divorce rates, and maybe, just once, during the hardest year, a version of that question arrived from somewhere inside the marriage itself. Was this a huge mistake? It wasn't. And what follows isn't reassurance, and it isn't philosophy. It is 40 years of real outcomes that are impossible to argue with. Here is what marrying young actually produced. They were broke when they started, both of them. Maybe one car between them that needed work they couldn't always afford. Maybe a bank account that ran thin by the third week of every month. Or maybe a kitchen table where they sat on a Thursday evening doing math that didn't add up. The car needs $400, but the bank says $180, and they figured it out anyway. Not with a financial advisor, and not with years of experience. Just the two of them, working out what to cut and what to keep. That was uncomfortable. But here is what it actually gave them. They learned, at 23, exactly how the other person handles financial pressure. Do they panic or stay calm? Do they blame or solve? Do they face the problem or disappear into themselves? The couple who married at 35 finds this out later, when the problems are bigger, when the habits are harder to change, and when there is significantly more to lose. The couple who married young found it out early, when the stakes were low enough to survive the lesson. That's not a hardship of marrying young. That's one of the most valuable things early marriage quietly gives you. But the financial lessons were just the beginning. Imagine both couples bought their first homes shortly after marrying. The couple who married at 22 starts building equity years before the couple who married at 35. That's more than a decade of compounding on the mortgage, on the savings, and on the retirement fund. A decade of compounding is not a small difference. It is often the difference between retiring when you wanted to and working longer than you planned, not because they earned more and not because they made smarter investments, but because they started earlier. And starting earlier, when everyone said they were moving too fast, turned out to be one of the best financial decisions they ever made. But the financial head start wasn't even the most valuable thing early marriage gave them. Imagine their first child was born when they were 25. By the time that child turned 30, they had watched 32 years of their parents' marriage. 32 years of seeing what commitment actually looks like from the inside. Not the version from films, but the real version. The version where someone comes home tired and tries again anyway, where someone holds the family together during the difficult year without letting anyone feel the full weight of it, where two people disagree, genuinely and sometimes loudly, and find their way back to each other without making a ceremony of it. The couple who married at 35 and had children at 38, their child at 30, has watched perhaps 17 years of that marriage. Half as many years of daily demonstration. Half as many years of the template being quietly installed. Research on how relationship patterns pass between generations consistently finds that children who grow up watching long, stable marriages are significantly more likely to build stable relationships themselves. Not because anyone taught them, but because they were shown every ordinary day for the entire length of their childhood. Nobody planned this at 22. But the child who watched 32 years carries something different into their own relationships than the child who watched 17. And it doesn't stop with the children. Their children left home when they were around 50, which means they have had, or will have, roughly 25 years of life together after the parenting years ended. Healthy years, active years, years with the financial pressure largely behind them, years to travel together, to sit on the porch without anyone needing anything, and to do the things they always said they would do when the children grew up. The couple who married at 35 and had children at 38, their children leave home when they're 63. The years that follow are fewer, and the health to fully enjoy them is less certain. Nobody planned this either, But marrying young meant the partnership outlasted the parenting years by a significant margin. They got each other back, just the two of them, while they still had the energy to fully live it. That's not luck. That's what starting early actually produces. But perhaps the most underrated advantage of marrying young has nothing to do with money or time or children at all. After 40 years, they know things about each other that nobody else on earth knows. They know how she takes her coffee, they know what his silence means, and they know which story has been told 100 times, and they still laugh at it the same way. They know what scares each other. They know what the other person needs when words aren't enough. He knows what she looks like when she's carrying something she hasn't said out loud yet, and she knows the difference between him being tired and him being defeated. He knows which problems she wants advice about, and which ones she just needs him to sit quietly through. She knows the sound of his footsteps on the stairs, and what mood is in them before he says a single word. That kind of knowledge doesn't come from meeting more people. It doesn't come from more dating experience, more relationships, or more options. It comes from paying attention to one person for a very long time. And you can only build it one way, by choosing one person and staying. And when the hardest moments arrived, they faced them as an established team. The death of a parent, the illness that changed everything, the financial crisis nobody saw coming, and the year that tested everything they had built. The couple who married at 35 navigates these moments with a newer partnership, still learning how the other person handles catastrophe. The couple who married young navigated them with decades of shared problem-solving behind them. The kitchen table at 23, the difficult year at 38, and every moment in between that proved, from experience not theory, that they could get through the worst together. That knowledge changes everything, not because they loved each other more than couples who married later, but because they had already proved to each other and to themselves that they could survive it. So was it a huge mistake? Maybe it wasn't perfect. Maybe some years were incredibly hard, and maybe there were moments when they questioned everything. But look at what the decision actually produced. Look at the house, look at the children, and look at the grandchildren. Look at the years they got together after the children left, while they still had the health and energy to enjoy them. Look at what they know about each other after 40 years of paying attention. Look at what they survived together. Look at the life that exists, all of it, because two young people made that decision before they fully knew what they were deciding. 40 years later, calling it a mistake feels very different. If you married before 25, this is for you. You started with almost nothing and figured it out together. You built earlier than the people who waited. You gave your children more years of daily demonstration than any later timing could have provided. You got each other back while you still had the energy to fully live it. You know your spouse in a way that only comes from 40 years of paying attention to one person. You faced the hardest moments as a team that had already survived things together, made young, made uncertain, and made before either of you knew what you were starting. And look what you built. How old were you when you got married? And what is one thing your early marriage gave you that you never expected? Tell me in the comments. I read every single one.